Hello. Today I'm going to tell a Russian folk tale called The Frog Princess. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away in a certain kingdom, there lived a king. He had 3 sons, all of them young, single and strong, and very good looking. Such fine specimens of manhood that you could hardly describe it in a story, hardly explain it in words. The youngest was named Ivan. One day the king called them all together and said, "My dear sons, take each of you a single arrow. Find the tightest bow you can find and send an arrow each into a different direction. Wherever that arrow falls, there you'll find your bride." The eldest prince knocked an arrow to his bow, let it shoot. It sailed through the air where it finally landed right into the yard of a boyar, a nobleman, right in front of the women's quarters. The middle son knocked an arrow to his bow, drew back, and sent an arrow soaring all the way through the air, where it landed right in the porch of a gorgeous house. On that porch stood a maid, the daughter of a very rich merchant. As for Prince Ivan, well, he took his arrow, knocked it to his bow, let loose, and Ivan's arrow soared all the way through the sky till it fell into a dirty, murky swamp. For a long time he couldn't find it. Then he saw it lying in the reeds. A slimy frog was holding it. Prince Ivan said aloud, "How can I take a frog for a wife? A frog is no equal to a king's son." "Take her as your wife," said the king. "It seems that that's your fate." And so all 3 princes had their weddings. The eldest was married to the boyar's daughter, the middle son was married to a rich merchant's daughter, and Prince Ivan was married to nothing but a little teeny frog. The king called them to himself and said, "My boys, I want your wives to weave me a rug in a single night." Prince Ivan came back to his room, sad, his head hanging below his wide shoulders. "Kero, Prince Ivan, why are you so sad? Has your father said something unkind to you?" "How can I not be sad, Frog? My father the king has ordered you to weave a silk rug overnight." "Don't be sad, my prince. Go to bed now. The morning is wiser than the evening." The frog tucked him into bed, and as soon as he fell asleep she shed her frog skin and turned into a beautiful princess. "I am Vasilisa the Wise," she said as she came out to the porch. "Come out, my dear servants, gather and help me make a silken rug like I used to sit in my father's house." No sooner said than done. In the morning Prince Ivan woke up. To his surprise, the frog had long completed her silk rug. It was so beautiful that he could hardly describe it in story, hardly explain it in words. It was woven with gold and silver thread and intertwining, dizzying decorations. Then the other brothers brought their rugs that their wives had made overnight. The king looked at the rug of the eldest and he said, "That rug is only good to put at the threshold." Then the king looked at the rug of the middle son. "That rug is only good enough to wipe your shoes on." But then the king looked at the rug of Prince Ivan, and he gasped in wonder. "Now that's a rug that can only lie in the front of a great king's palace." Great king's throne, that is. Some time passed. The king called to his sons to himself once again and said, "Have your wives bake me a loaf of bread by tomorrow morning." Prince Ivan came back to his room and sad, his head hanging below his wide shoulders. Get out, Prince Ivan. Why are you so sad? Has your father said something unkind to you? How can I not be sad? The king, my father, commanded you to prepare him a soft white loaf of bread by tomorrow. Don't be sad, my prince. Go to bed now. The morning is wiser than the evening. The frog tucked him in the bed, and as soon as he fell asleep, she shed her frog skin and turned into a beautiful princess. Vasilisa the Wise came out to the porch and called with a loud voice, "Come out, my dear servants. Gather and help make me a loaf of bread, the kind that I used to eat in the court of my father the king." In the morning, Prince Ivan woke up, and the frog had prepared the bread long ago, and it was so beautiful that you could hardly imagine it, hardly guess at it, only tell about it in story. It was a raised bread with decorations so intricate from the side you could see it was covered as though with towers of the king's palace. Prince Ivan was thrilled. He put the bread into a towel and came to his father. The king was accepting the breads from his elder brothers. The king looked at the bread of the eldest and sent it to the servants' table. He looked at the bread of the middle son, and he sent it to the same place. But he looked at the bread of Prince Ivan's wife, and the king said, "Ah, now that is the kind of bread that we can only eat on a feast day." Some more time passed, and then the king called his sons to himself again, and he said, "I want you and your wives to appear tomorrow at a feast that will be in their honor." Prince Ivan came to his room and said, and his head was hanging below his shoulders, Gero. Prince Ivan, why are you so sad? Has your father said something unkind to you?" "How can I not be sad? The king, my father, commanded you to appear with me at a feast in your honor. How will I show you to the world, to the whole world? Don't be sad, my prince, my love. Go to the feast without me. I'll come afterwards. As soon as you hear loud noise and thunder, just tell everyone that it's your frog in her little box." And so the elder brothers appeared at the feast with their wives, who were dressed to the nines for the occasion. They saw Ivan come by himself, and they mocked him. Well, brother, why did you come without your wife? Couldn't you at least put a shawl on her? And where did you find such a beauty? You must have looked and looked through the entire swamp." Suddenly there was a loud noise and thunder, so loud that the entire palace shook to its foundations. All the guests were frightened, jumped out of their seats, not knowing what on earth to do. But even the prince got up and tried to calm them down. "Don't be afraid, dear friends. That's just my frog arriving in her little box." Suddenly everyone saw a wondrous golden carriage arriving at the steps of the palace, led by 6 glorious horses. Out of that carriage came Vasilisa the Wise, a beauty so fine that you could hardly describe it in story, hardly explain it in words. She took Prince Ivan by his hand and led him to the feasting table. Everyone began to eat and drink and make merry, but Vasilisa only drank a little, then poured the rest into her left sleeve. And she ate a bit of swan and put the right into her right sleeve. The wives of the elder brothers saw what she was doing and decided to do the same thing. Then Vasilisa the Wise began to dance with Prince Ivan. She waved with her left hand, and suddenly a lake stood in their midst. She waved with her right hand, and all along that lake swans began to swim. The king and all the guests were amazed. Then the elder wives began to dance, waved their left hands, but only splashed all the guests. Then they waved their right hands, and only landed the bones in the king's face. The king was furious and sent them out of the room. In the meantime, Prince Ivan found an appropriate moment, ran to his room and found the frog skin, and threw it into the fire. Vasilisa ran in after him. Nowhere could she find her frog skin. She got so sad and turned to her husband and said, "Oh, oh, my love, what have you done? If you had only waited a bit longer, I would have become yours for all time period. But now, farewell. You alone can find me beyond the thrice 9 lands, into the thrice 10th kingdom, into the kingdom of Koshchei the Deathless. She turned into a white swan and flew out the window. Ivan the prince, Ivan the prince began to cry bitterly, and then he left and went wherever his eyes led him, wherever he went, near or far, whether he walked for a long time or short. Suddenly he saw an old man walking in the forest. "Hello, young man. What are you seeking, and where are you going?" The prince told him his very unhappy tale. "Oh, father, old grandfather, what am I to do?" "Oh, Ivan the prince, oh, Prince Ivan, why did you burn the frog skin? It was not you who put it on. It was not you to take it off. Vasilisa the Wise was born more cunning and more wise than her father. For that, because he envied her, he cursed her, and commanded that she be a frog for 3 years. Here is a skein of thread for you. Wherever it rolls, follow it boldly." Prince Ivan thanked the old man, went in the wake of the skein of thread. He walked and walked, then he came out into an open field. Prince Ivan nocked an arrow to his bow, and he was just about to kill a bear when the bear spoke in a human voice. "Don't kill me, Prince Ivan. I will be useful to you some day." Prince Ivan didn't touch the bear and went on his way. He went further and further, and suddenly he saw a mallard flying above him. The prince nocked an arrow to his bow, was about to shoot that mallard right through the neck, when suddenly the mallard spoke in a human voice. "Don't kill me, Prince Ivan. I will be useful to you some day. Quack, quack." Prince Ivan felt very sorry for the mallard and went on his way. Suddenly a rabbit ran right out in front of him. And Prince Ivan nocked an arrow to his bow and was about to shoot that little rabbit, when the rabbit spoke to him in a human voice. "Don't shoot me, Prince Ivan. I will be useful to you some day." The prince felt sorry for the rabbit and went on his way all the way to the banks of the blue sea. Then he saw, lying on the sand, an enormous pike. "Oh, Prince Ivan, have mercy on me. Throw me back into the ocean." The prince did so, and went on his way, walking along the shore. Whether a long time or a short time passed, the ball of thread led him to a hut. There it stood on chicken feet, spinning, spinning, spinning around itself. Prince Ivan said, "Hut, hut! Turn with your back to the forest, and your front to me." The hut did so. The prince walked in and saw quite a sight. On the stove top, on the 9th brink, stood Baba Yaga. With her bony leg lay there, her nose growing all the way to the ceiling. She was sharpening her own teeth. "Well there, young warrior, why have you darkened my doorstep?" asked Baba Yaga. "Oh, Baba Yaga, with a bony leg, why are you asking me questions? First you should feed me, give me drink, let me wash in the bathhouse, and then you can ask me anything you like." And Baba Yaga did. She fed him, gave him drink, let him wash in the bathhouse, and then the prince told her that he sought his wife, Vasilisa, the wise. "No, I know all about that," said Baba Yaga. "She's stuck in the kingdom of Koshchei the Deathless. It will be hard to get her out. You know, not easy to deal with Koshchei. After all, his death is on the end of a needle, and that needle is in an egg, and that egg is in a duck, and the duck is inside of a rabbit, and that rabbit is inside of a chest, and that chest is in the branches of a tall, tall oak tree. And Koshchei's vigilant eye never leaves that oak tree." Then Baba Yaga showed Prince Ivan where the oak tree grew. Prince Ivan came to that place and didn't know how to get the chest down. Suddenly a bear showed up out of nowhere. "I told you I would be useful to you one day, Prince Ivan. Here." He got a good grip on the tree. and pulled it together with its roots. The chest fell out and broke into pieces, and out of that chest sprang a rabbit as fast as the eye could see. Suddenly Prince Yvonne saw another rabbit running after it. It caught the rabbit and tore it into shreds. Out of the rabbit a duck flew, up and into the sky, and then a mallard swooped out of nowhere and struck the duck with its bill. An egg fell out of the duck and into the waters of the deep blue sea. Prince Yvonne, seeing the failing of all his plans, sat down and began to weep. And then out of nowhere a pike swam right up to him. It was holding an egg in its teeth. Prince Yvonne took the egg, broke it apart, pulled out a thin, sharp needle, and then out of nowhere a pike swam up to him. The Then fell out of the duck and into the waters of the deep blue sea. The Prince Yvonne, seeing the failing of his plan, sat down and began to weep. Then out of nowhere a pike swam up to him, and it was holding the egg in its teeth. Prince Yvonne took the egg, broke it apart, put out a thin, sharp needle, and then he broke off its tip. No matter how much Koschei resisted, no matter how much he thrashed from side to side, he had no choice in the matter. His death got to him and finished him off. Prince Yvonne entered the palace of Koschei the Deathless, took Vasilisa the Wise by her lily-white hand, and returned to his own kingdom. And they both lived happily ever after. The end. And that was the story of the Frog Princess, an old tale from old Russia.